Hello everyone, welcome to the Aquashop Wasabi Aquarium channel. In this episode, we'll be talking about how to properly reset your aquarium. The focus of this video is going to be on resetting this 45cm layout right over here. I'm going to tear down this aquascape and start anew to make a brand new layout. This means I will be removing everything from inside of this aquarium, and I'll be talking about what the steps are and some of the important things you should know for this process. If you are someone who doesn't know how to start this resetting process, or you seem to not be able to catch all of your fish and shrimps when you do it, or if the aquarium got so cloudy you couldn't tell what was going on, then this video should be able to help you alleviate those concerns for next time. So my shop has been open now for around 8 or 9 years, and during those 8 or 9 years, I have probably restarted dozens of different display layouts. I've done setups and resets on everything from nano aquariums all the way up to a 150cm long, full-blown display aquarium. Because I have actual experience doing this many times on varying aquarium sizes, I hope that you find this to be a reliable source of information that can help you later on. Before we start tearing anything down, there are a few important steps to take. The first step is in regards to your external filtration. I'm pretty sure that you are all using something like this canister filter down here. Sorry about it not being in the shot. Anyways, it is very important that you preserve the biological filtration in the canister filter so that it is ready for your newly reset aquarium, if you are planning to go that route. The way you preserve your biological filter is to make sure you remove all of the water from the canister filter while you are resetting your aquarium. Now I'm going to assume that you know a little bit about the importance of this beneficial bacteria, and as you may know, if you create an environment without enough oxygen, this beneficial bacteria will die. These bacteria need to breathe oxygen, just like us. So if you do leave the water in the canister filter without running it for multiple hours, the bacteria will use up all of the oxygen that was present and then start dying off. When the filter is running normally, these bacteria get a constant stream of fresh oxygenated water from the main display, which is how they survive. So if you cut the power to the filter, these bacteria will no longer get that stream of oxygenated water, and as such will start dying until the whole colony has died off. And if you use this mostly dead filter again on your new system, the cycling process for this new layout is going to take much longer than it should have. Okay then, what happens when you do remove the water from the canister filter? What happens is that instead of being limited to the dissolved oxygen content of the water, the bacteria in the filter will have access to atmospheric oxygen inside the canister. Basically, what this means is there is more oxygen available to the bacteria, which means better survival rates. I won't say that you'll have a 100% survival rate, but what I can say is that you will lose fewer bacteria this way than not removing the water. So again, if you're not planning to just break down, but to also refill the aquarium, make sure to remove that water in the canister filter so that you can reuse that biological filtration. Although if you were curious, the most ideal action you can take is to move the entire canister filter and run it on a different established aquarium. But I know that many of you either only have one aquarium, or your other aquariums are too small for the canister filter to be on temporarily. So if you are going to reuse it, just make sure to remove the water and you'll be alright. And that was step number 1. The next step is to remove all of the other equipment from the aquarium, including your CO2 system. Right now, I still have the lights on the aquarium for display purposes, but you will want to remove your lights, your heater if you are running one, and every other piece of equipment you are using. That was step 2 in the preparation stage. Now, it is time to siphon out the water. So I have already drained out half of the water so I can move the aquarium to where I can film it. But for this step, you will want to siphon out most of the water in the aquarium. Please don't worry about your fish and other critters during this step. As long as you leave them a few centimeters of water, they'll be just fine. When talking about the timing of when to remove your fish, go ahead and catch as many as you can before draining the aquarium. But this is going to be dependent on what kind of layout you have. If you have something like a grassland aquascape, then it will be super easy to catch your fish even with the aquarium full of water. So if you are one of those people, please by all means remove all of the fish beforehand. But if you have a densely planted aquarium like this one, it is going to be nearly impossible to catch the fish out of here. So rather than struggling first to net them out, wait until the very end. It's going to be way easier to do, and it won't hurt the fish. And I'm going to stop draining right about here so that I give these little guys some extra room. I could drain out more water, but I'll leave some extra this time around. So the next step is to remove the plants and the hardscape. This specific layout is going to be a challenge because the plants have gotten tangled up in each other from how well they were growing. In this step, we're aiming to remove things like the driftwood first. One point to keep in mind is that making the water cloudier than it needs to will make the process of removing the fish later on that much more difficult. So remove the hardscape as slowly and as gently as you can to prevent excess cloudiness. If you have rocks that are pretty well buried into the soil, the key is again to remove them as slowly as possible. That way you prevent any unnecessary cloudiness. When removing your hardscape and plants, there is a strong chance of having shrimp stuck in the plants, so be careful of that. So something that I do is I gently shake off whatever piece I removed inside the tank so that the shrimps have a chance to escape. For the hardscape that you have removed, if they have plants growing on them like this bulbitis is, make sure that they don't dry out by either keeping it in a bucket of water or wrapping the plants in some wet paper towels. The example for this video is a 45cm layout, but the thought process and steps are the same regardless of whether you have a large aquarium or a small aquarium. So even if you are trying to learn how to break down a large aquarium, there is still something to learn from this video, so I hope you keep watching. Again, a key point is to be as careful as you can to not make the aquarium cloudier than it needs to be. In this layout, I had it set up to where the soil slopes up to the back of the aquarium. Because of this, the back area of the aquarium is actually out of the water. In this specific scenario, because the fish are aggregated towards the front water area, I will be catching them now while it's easy before I touch the rest of the plants. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but when you are first draining your aquarium, please make sure to save the water you have taken out. Obviously, one reason for saving the water is to be able to put the fish away in it, but the other reason why is you could reuse it in certain circumstances. What I mean is if your aquarium was absolutely perfect before taking it down, you could reuse the water you have taken out for when it comes time to refill the aquarium. By doing this, you will minimize the amount of problems that may arise from a cycle happening, and also your aquarium will re-establish itself much faster. If your water was perfect, then you should save as close to 100% of it as you can, which in most cases is like 40 to 60 liters if you have a small aquarium. On the other hand, if you are resetting your aquarium because it's not in good condition, then I would say it's safe to throw out all of the water. Of course, make sure you save some water to put the fish away temporarily. And just like this, it should be pretty easy to scoop up the fish and shrimp at this stage. For this example, I was able to prevent any significant amount of cloudiness from happening, so it's very easy for me this time around. As I mentioned earlier, they're all grouped up towards the front water area, so there is no unnecessary chasing around or causing a mess. One word of advice here. Shrimps can walk around in that back emerged area, so just keep an eye out for them so they don't meet unfortunate ends. With the fish, there's no worry about that because they are restricted to the water. And just like that, scoop up the rest of your fish and shrimp and put them away. You know, for layouts like this one where the soil comes up at an angle, it makes it very simple to catch the fish at this stage. Because when you drain the aquarium, you know that the back is going to be out of the water, which means all the fish have to come forward. If you have a pretty quote-unquote flat layout with minimal slopes, then it will be more difficult to remove all of the fish because the water is still in the back areas of your aquarium. This means that fish have more areas to escape, and that will lead to a tougher time ahead. When the aquarium is not cloudy, it's super easy to find your fish from above and catch them. So there is a huge payoff for going slow and steady in the hardscape removal process. And just like that, I have moved all the fish and shrimps that I could spot. There is a chance that I may have missed a shrimp or two, but I'll keep my eye out for them. Now, let's move on to the next step. The next step is going to be removing the remaining stem plants. But before that, a common mistake people do is that they remove these plants first. If you do that, you will end up with a swamp from how cloudy and dirty the aquarium will get. So if you follow this guide, you should not end up with a swamp. And for this specific layout, again, because the soil is slanted, it becomes very easy to remove these plants without making too much of a mess. However, let's talk about what you should do if your soil is laid out relatively flat, or if you are forced to remove the plants first to even get a chance at catching your fish. So the one thing that you don't want to do is to pull up the plants. That is how you make a swamp. So instead of pulling the plants up, you will want to take out as much plant matter as you can with some scissors. If you want to make this step even easier for yourself, get a pair of scissors where the center is bent, like this one. This particular scissor is the ADA Pro Scissors Wave, and with this type of quote-unquote bent scissors, you can cut all the way to the bottom in comparison to other scissor designs. Yes, in theory, if you place a pair of straight type scissors flat against the soil, you can do something similar. But it is a lot easier to use these wave type scissors for this step, so that's the method I will be showing. The trick here is to grip the base of the plants, don't pull them, and then cut as close to the soil as you can. Kinda like this. It's quite difficult for me to do this from the back, but you also want to make sure that you cut off any roots that are still connected to the plants. If you don't cut off the roots, you will cause that muddy, cloudy water situation that we've been trying so hard to avoid. And that's one bunch down. Again, just like this, you want to cut the plants and roots along the soil level. If you do it like this, you will not end up with a cloudy aquarium. Whenever possible, it is best to avoid that result. In this case, I was able to remove the fish beforehand, so it wouldn't have been detrimental if the aquarium got cloudy. Even if you have a layout that forces you to remove the plants in order to grab the fish, as long as you cut and not pull out the plants, the cloudiness will be minimized. And most of the time, aquariums get cloudy at this plant removal stage, so if you are extra careful here, it will be much easier to catch your fish. If you have been watching the water clarity, you can tell that it hasn't clouded up that much. Another benefit of doing the plant removal this way is if you have any shrimps that were stuck in the plant, it will be very easy to spot them and then catch them out. I think the part that everyone stresses out over the most is that part of removing your fish and shrimps, where if the water got cloudy, it may take hours before you're able to get all of your fish out. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be this part on how to remove the plants. If you remember this process, the time it will take to reset the aquarium will be much faster and easier. I think everyone would be worried if they missed scooping up one of their fish, and then quite sad if they found its carcass later on. So if you remove all the stuff that can block the view, like plants for example, then you will be able to find all of your little critters and avoid any unnecessary deaths. For this teardown, I'm able to do it all from above the aquarium, which makes it much easier to do. But if you have an aquarium that's 90 centimeters or larger, it can be tough to do this process from above, so I highly recommend grabbing a stool or stepladder. That way, you can do this process from higher up, which will make it much easier. A quick tip is if you have plants that send out runners, their root systems are normally very strong, so just cut them off. For example, this runner plant right here, which I think it's Echinodorus tenalis, I'm just cutting them off instead of pulling them, again to prevent cloudiness. And one last final check, and I think that's all the fish and shrimps. Now that I'm done removing the plants and fish, let's move on to the next step. The next step is to remove the soil and sand or gravel that is left. But before that, there is a point that I forgot to talk about earlier. This is in regards to your fish that you have probably put away in a bucket. If you are expecting this reset to take many hours, I suggest you add some sort of aeration to the bucket. That way you can prevent any losses due to a lack of oxygen in the water. The other thing I want to talk about is the nets that I used for catching the fish. These are called Shinari nets from a brand called Sudo, and they are the easiest nets I have used to catch fish with. I have been using this exact set for many years now here at my store, and I love them. The cool thing with this net is the frame is actually a thin metal rod, so you are able to bend it to the corners of the aquarium with ease. This makes it easy to catch small fish where you normally may not be able to. The other nice feature this net has is that it bends vertically, so it can make those tough catches just a little easier. They come in most of your common sizes, so if you are interested in picking one up for yourself, I have put a link in the description down below that takes you to the product page. Okay, now getting back on track, it's time to remove the soil and sand. First, we are going to want to get one of these ready. Can you tell what it is? Sorry that it's crumpled up, but these are empty sandbags, and we will be scooping out the sand and soil into one of these to separate them from the water. Now, depending on where you live, the rules and regulations on proper soil disposal can vary. So before you go throwing it away, make sure you check your local rules to make sure you aren't illegally dumping the soil. And even if you can throw the soil away normally, you probably don't want to throw it away all waterlogged. So what we're going to do is we'll place the empty sandbag in a bucket. Can you see it? I'm sorry that it's hard to see, I'm a little too close for this. But basically, we place the open sandbag in the bucket, then we put the sand and soil in the bag so that the water separates. Kinda like this. So when removing the soil, I recommend using some sort of soil scooper with holes in it. This is a very simple plastic scooper, and what you end up using doesn't really need to be anything fancy. But if you want the exact one that I'm using, then I've also placed a link in the description down below if you're interested in picking one up. Now let's get scooping. So what you'll notice is that it is really just scooping the soil out, no fancy tricks here. And because we have removed all the fish and shrimps, we don't have to worry about getting the water cloudy anymore, so just go at it. Although I'm not perfect, so I did miss 2 little critters which may or may not have shown up during the video. But not to worry, I found them and took them out of the aquarium. So before you start scooping up the soil, just make sure one more time that you didn't leave any stragglers behind. The shrimps are difficult to see, even if you were extra cautious with not making the water cloudy. I'm repeating myself here, but just take your time in the hardscape removal and plant removal phase so the water doesn't get cloudy. One commonly asked question about the plants you took out is, can I reuse these plants I have pulled out for this new layout that I am making? Unfortunately, the only answer I can give you is that it's a case-by-case basis. What I can tell you is to take a close look at the plants you took out that you were trying to reuse. If those plants had 0 algae on them whatsoever, they look perfect, and if the layout you broke down was perfect and had 0 pests, then yes, feel free to reuse those plants. However, if your layout had cyanobacteria growing or beard algae, then you absolutely do not want to reuse those plants. Reason being that you put all of this effort into resetting your aquarium, starting from a clean slate, and you can ruin it by adding that plant that may have, for example, beard algae on it. What I mean by ruin is not only will the plant not look good from the beginning, but it can also spread that pest around into this brand new layout you just made. A newly set up aquarium, regardless of if you saved your biological filtration, will be unstable in the beginning, and you want to avoid adding anything that can thrive in that unstable condition. The final decision on if the plant is good to use is up to your eyes and instinct. Alright, so that was most of the sand and soil removed. The next step is to remove the rest of this water and whatever else is left over. Now, if you have an aquarium that is smaller than 60 centimeters, I actually recommend you carry it to your sink or garden hose and just spray out the remaining crud and water that's left. But for aquariums 60 centimeters or larger, it's either very difficult or impossible to do the carry method I just mentioned. So in those cases, I would take a container of some sort and manually scoop out what I can. Or, depending on the situation, I may refill the aquarium up to halfway, start a siphon, and take out as much as I can that way. This part is the most time consuming, so I will cut forward to when I'm about done. So we are getting close to the end now, and as you can see, even if you try your hardest, you will have some soil and sand left over. When you are at this stage, there are a few different options that you can take in order to get the rest of the soil out. If there is very little soil and sand left over, you can use something like a washcloth or a high water absorption towel and scoop out the rest by hand. Or if there is a sizable amount of soil left over, you can do the refill then siphon method that I mentioned earlier if you haven't done it already. I will be going for the refill method now as I still have a decent amount of soil and sand left. Alright, so I am filling the aquarium up now, and while you are doing this, I recommend washing off any debris that may be stuck to the glass so that you can siphon it out. And then like you would for a water change, I'll start a siphon. The only difference this time around is I have the end of the hose going into the sandbag that I put my soil in. It's pretty simple from here. All you need to do is make sure you are getting the tubing directly onto the soil and sand you want to take out. One word of advice from me is to not use tubing that is too small in diameter. If you use tubing that is too small, you can run into problems with the soil clogging the tubing and stopping the siphon. So use some tubing that is a little on the larger end, and you should be good. With nano aquariums, this whole process of breaking down a layout is very easy because you can just take it to a sink. But for those with larger aquariums, it's more difficult because you normally can't pick it up and move it. However, even though this example is a 45 centimeter aquarium, I want to be comprehensive, so I am breaking this layout down as if it were a larger setup. I ran out of water. I missed a little bit, but I can get it out later. Pro tip: if you want to be able to take out all the soil in one shot, fill the aquarium with a little more water than you think you may need. So the final step is to take out any remaining water from the siphoning step with a washcloth of some sort. This part is simple. Just soak up as much water as you can, wring out the washcloth, and repeat. If you want to be done with this step faster, I strongly recommend picking up a towel or cloth that has a high level of water absorption beforehand. A towel that is designed to absorb as much water as possible will make your life in this step much easier. You basically want a towel that acts like a sponge, so in that sense you could use a sponge if that's what you have. For smaller aquariums, you can just tip it over to get any extra water out. And alright, the teardown of this layout is now complete. So, how was the video? To summarize, I walked you through not only the steps you should take in order to properly reset your aquarium, but also some important advice for each step if there was advice to give. When talking about doing a reset on an aquarium, I think we have all thought of it to be a drag and pushed it off until we got tired of being lazy. But one way I think about it is to make a new masterpiece, you have to tear down your old work. To move forward and to get better at this beautiful hobby, there isn't really a way around that. So when you have an extra day off or something, get out there and reset your aquarium. And I think the reason why people get lazy about it is due to the perceived amount of time it takes to finish. But again, going back to the catching fish part, if you are careful with not making the water cloudy, then it will be a breeze to catch your fish. That alone can lead to this whole reset process being completed that much faster. So you may have noticed that I'm ending the video off here with just an empty glass box. But fear not, I will be making a video on creating a brand new layout for this 45 centimeter aquarium. I've got the general aquascape down in my head, so now it's just me making the layout and uploading a video for you, the viewers. I hope you look forward to that video coming soon. If this video taught you something new, and you enjoy watching this kind of content, please like and subscribe to the Aquashop Wasabi Aquarium channel. Thank you for watching, and again, please look forward to the aquascaping video on this 45 centimeter aquarium.